Hello and welcome to Swimmed, education for coaches, athletes, and parents.
The only podcast dedicated to club swimming.
Here we examine swimming and sports from three perspectives: the coaches, the athletes, and the parents.
Through our candid and unscripted discussions, we share our views along with advice and applications that can help coaches improve their coaching, athletes increase their performances, and parents boost their support.
So, welcome to Swim. Let's dive in. Hey, Jen, how's it going?
Hi, good. I am in the middle of taper, drop taper, not full taper.
Oh, that's right, because everything got screwed up with the hurricane.
Yeah, so my South Carolina high school girls swam last night, and then I got one more day with my boys, and then they swim on Thursday. So South Carolina high school stayed earlier than
Why don't they
everybody.
do it on the weekend like everybody else?
Well, there is, I think like 5A is on Saturday.
Oh, I hate when they do that.
So that's the difference too. It's time finals, so they don't get finals. So not only is it time final, but they split the girls and the boys up. So
That's
they're,
insane.
yeah, it talk about complicating things. Yeah, so they like,
Okay, time out, because so they have a girls, so depending on your class, you have a championship. Then you have girls championship, a boys championship, and then combined championship, or completely
just
separate.
girls, just boys. So
Okay,
like,
so I mean, like, I think everybody else does boys and girls, so that's not a big deal. But normally you swim together
yeah,
because
and that's
because
the
then
big
you
thing
have
too.
time in between. But I guess if
Yeah,
you're only doing time finals, you have plenty of time in between if your top swimmers are your top swimmers. But if you're a
yeah.
breaststroker, you have to be a little bit strategic there because we all know that breaststrokers can't do anything but breaststroke normally.
Well,
Cheers,
they
that's me.
take like 5 to 10 minute breaks so they'll do like 3 or 4 events, and then they do a break where they'll do awards,
Awards.
and then another section, and then a break, and then another
So you
section.
can just drag it out as long as physically
four
possible.
hours, 4 hours
For a high school
each
meet.
session. Yeah. Yeah, they're I mean, some of them, the smaller schools, I think they're able to get them done in like 3 hours. But like my kids last night, I want to say it
That's because
started.
nobody of the smaller schools can qualify
Well, and so that's the thing
unless
is,
they're year-round swimmers.
yeah. And so it was like last night they started at 6, and I don't think they were done until like 8:30, 9 o'clock. So yeah, you're looking at 3.5 hours. And that was 4A. So that wasn't even five. And there's 3 heats, top 30, 3 heats of each event.
Okay,
So
so you qualify be in the top 30 in your class in the state.
mhm.
That's unique.
Well, and there's qualifying times. So they call them consideration times. You have to hit a consideration time to even go. So if you don't hit a consideration time, even though you're top 30, you're not swimming. So some of the events did not have 30 swimmers make the consideration time, and there was only like 2 heats instead
You
of
mean like
three.
in the 500 freestyle?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. So,
Exactly.
but yeah, there's like 3 sessions each day. So like Tuesday was like 3 boys, 5A girls, and then 4A girls. And then Thursday will be 3A girls, 5A boys, and 4A
Is it the
boys.
same schedule every year, or do they have a randomizer like, this is when you get your days?
I actually don't know the answer to that question. I
Because
can't.
it doesn't make any. You
No,
went boys, girls, girls, and then you're going to go boys, girl. I don't know. That's
it
confusing.
does. Well, no, because I guess now that I think about it, my boys were second last year too, so they must not change it
I mean,
every.
it'd be better if they just kept it the same, so you can, okay, on Tuesday, that's of state, that's when we're going.
I mean, it would be better if they kept the girls and boys in the same session of the same thing, but what do
Well,
I
and
know?
maybe just do it Thursday, Friday, Saturday
Yeah,
instead
I
of like
mean,
Tuesday through Friday, which is
yeah,
bizarre.
yeah. So yeah, it's interesting. But my girls did really good yesterday. I was really, really proud. We had some best times that I was really surprised about for what we've been through. So I think they were just excited to get back and race because it's been so long. It's been over a month since they've raced. So I think they were just really excited to get to race again, and it showed. But anyway, it was good. But I'm in the midst of that, of managing all of that. So come come Thursday evening, I'll be ready to like go into normal coaching mode again. Um, so yeah.
So how long is your drop taper then?
So this one was kind of like drop taper on steroids because the kids were out of the pool for almost 2 weeks because of the storm. So I had to like quickly do some two-a-days that were, really around 6 to 7,000 yards, both times
Right.
I mean, really break their bodies down enough that I could do a drop taper. So the girls obviously had to be on a different trajectory because they were going sooner. So theirs was really only like 3 to 4 days.
Right.
And then boys, they're gonna be right at 4 days. So I got, obviously because they were later that they're not until tomorrow, I got to give them a little bit more of it. But yeah, I mean it was short and sweet and abrupt.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
So you do the best that you can with what you got and go from there. So
I mean, that's all
hopefully,
you can do. You can tire them out and then try to bring them back down. But I mean, you have the blues come in, the taper blues come in right about 4 to 7 days. So it's like less than four or more than seven is
yeah,
normally where you're at.
yeah,
So I see coaches all the time. I had somebody call me the other day. I mean, this is obviously a couple months ago, but what would you do in this situation? And they were going to do a 6 day taper. I said, not that.
yeah,
Either drop it or don't drop it, but you can't
yeah,
go in between because they're going to be in the middle of just feeling heavy in their muscles,
right.
and that's not going to work for anybody.
Yeah,
You know what I mean? Because it takes that 7 to 10 day window. Those are the days where you're going to feel it. And that's the other thing. I constantly ask my swimmers, "How do you feel today? Are
yeah,
you better than yesterday or worse than yesterday?" And it's always like worse, 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 better, 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 better. You know what I
yeah,
mean? As
yeah,
as you go through that
yeah,
blues situation, but I also tell them all about it.
yeah,
This is what your body's doing. This is putting water into your muscles. It's trying to repair. This is
yeah,
a natural consequence of resting. So be ready for it. And
yeah,
as long as they know about it and they know what to expect, it can be positive because if not, they're coming in with a negative or lack of confidence. I find that it's just a lack
yeah.
of confidence.
I mean,
And you don't want to have that.
I definitely think with drop tapers, it's really hard because like anytime you use the word taper, especially with kids, they think taper
Yes.
means like we're only doing starts and turns for 4 days. Like so
No, I
um
always I always start it with like, okay, today's the first day of taper. It won't feel that way.
yeah, yeah, exactly. And
Because we're
like
going from 7,000 or five, whatever group it is. Let's say 6,000. Now we're going to do 5,300. They're like, but that sucks. And I'm like, yeah,
yeah. Yeah,
yep.
yeah. So
It's an
and the boys,
escalator, not an elevator.
yeah,
We don't just
yeah.
drop it.
They would
It's
really like it to be an elevator.
Yeah, that's what you do when you're our age.
Yes.
I don't feel like exercising today. I think I'm going to go for a walk. Or
Hmm.
like the last couple of days. So I got invited by the dean to go play this golf tournament. I haven't played in 12 months,
Yeah.
right? And he's like, "Do you play golf?" I'm like, "What do you mean by play?" So my exercise the last couple of days have been going out and hitting 2 buckets of ball, and I'm sore as all get
Yeah.
out. Just the twisting
Yeah.
motion and all that kind of stuff. But it's this Friday. I'll let you know how I do. It's gonna be bad. It's not so good. I mean, I won't embarrass myself. I'll have a
Yeah.
couple good shots. It's golf. I'll have enough shots to bring me back,
Yeah.
but not enough shots to say I got this.
Yeah.
So it should be interesting. It's with my boss's boss. So what could go wrong?
Nothing. Absolutely nothing.
So anyway, so today I guess we want to talk about pet peeves,
Yeah.
which is fine. Let's talk about pet peeves.
Especially things.
Between the two of you, we both have pet peeves that are just we have to promise not to use foul language at all.
Yeah.
Okay? Because you want to go first. What we'll do is we'll just go back and forth. You need to name a pet peeve and then I'll go from there.
Yeah. So my first one that happened yesterday. So I have to still taper the boys, so I couldn't go and watch the girls state. And so we were live
You
streaming
could
it.
have. You could have watched the
Well,
boys. It's
well,
not
I
fair,
didn't.
but you could have.
Correct. But anyway, so we were live streaming the girls on a big TV on deck, and I was watching them, and it's funny because this is a memory that I have of Georgia high school state when I was a Georgia coach, that standing up at the top of Georgia Tech,
Right.
and
It's
all
steep.
of us, yeah. So all of us club coaches, when we go to watch high school, number one, like in case there's parents listening to this, we can't always go and watch high school. We still have to run the club.
Right.
So it when we have the opportunities, especially as senior coaches, we try to do it, but it's never guaranteed. And so I remember one of the high school states standing at the top of Georgia Tech on the top of the where all the bleachers are at. Where they, will put the media. There's like
Right. Because there's a
actual
desk there. You can sit
yeah,
down and you can
there's
like
these huge
eat.
desks. And I remember standing up there with a bunch of the Dynamo coaches and some like all of us Georgia coaches were standing up there together, like hiding from parents essentially.
Yes.
Because when you're in the back, the parents never turn around to see you. And we don't want anything to do with the high school parents because it's chaos down there. So we were all standing up there. And I remember standing there with everybody. And we rarely get to have that visual of the meet because we're always down on the pool deck.
Right.
And so when you get to stand up there and watch your swimmers from an above you level, there are things that like infuriate you. Like
Yeah.
you have spent season after season like telling them not to do these things and like working them not. And so I say this because for me last night watching this, you get to see all 10 lanes on the screen, right? So you can see side by side where all of the swimmers are at when they're racing. And so when your swimmers are not doing dolphin kicks that you have been nailing into their brains for the past 3 years, and you watch them, pop up off of a turn in a
Right.
hundred, every single turn doing two dolphin kicks. I mean, like, I was wanting to throw something on a screen yesterday.
Oh, I'm sure. I'm
I
sure.
was like, I can't. Are you joking? Why? And the hardest part is, especially in a situation like that, where it's time finals, that they don't even get like a second swim, right?
Yeah,
That
there's no fixing it. You,
it's like one and
this is
done.
it.
You can't even fix it. And so you're watching it and you know that like I had a couple of swimmers that they could have been on the podium had they
Right.
just done dolphin kicks. And like watching it, you're going, we literally 24 hours ago went over this.
Right.
Like how important this was and that the difference between you medaling or you dropping time was going to be walls. And so it is such a huge pet peeve for me that like we are now, what, probably two generations into the dolphin kick thing.
Oh, I'd say more like 3 or 4.
Yeah, that are like, we know dolphin kicks are priority. We know how, they make or break a race now. If you're great at dolphin kicks, I would venture to say like 85% of the time, you can sweep the floor in a short course race with a better technical swimmer if you are amazing at walls,
Well,
right?
I mean, okay. So that comes down to, I think you're right about the course because you have, we call the dolphin kicks the fifth stroke,
A stroke. Yeah.
but in short course, it's the second stroke.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because you have freestyle on top of the water, that's going to be your fastest. Dolphin kick under the water, and for some people, dolphin kick under the water is faster than their freestyle, which is kind of
Yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
But I mean, short course because you hit the turn so fast
Yep.
that if you don't have underwaters, you're reducing it down and you're
Yeah.
reducing your speed a lot. Now, long course, you have backstroke and butterfly are probably going to be more. Only breaststroke is going to be slower than the underwater dolphin kicks because you
Right.
just, per capita, I guess is a good way to
Yeah.
put it. The amount of strokes that you take. In freestyle, you're taking
Exactly.
30 strokes, 28 to 32 strokes per 50 long course, and you only have like 4 or 5 kicks underwater.
Yeah.
It's going to help you, but it's not going to dominate. But if you look at like Dressel, when he was breaking all the records in the 150 free, it was all underwaters. I
Right.
mean, I went up to a sectional meet and I saw a girl 12 and under break the 100 or 200 backstroke record, and she was underwater 15 meters off of every wall.
Yeah.
Right,
Exactly.
because she swam more underwaters than she swam backstroke and set the record.
Yeah.
So in short course states, pet peeve.
Yeah.
That's
I
a little bit
mean,
much.
and it really was like it's so painful as a coach. And I say this because like it's one of my funnest memories, I would say. So there's everybody knows who this swimmer is now because I mean he's been on national teams and all kinds of stuff. But this one Georgia high school state, it was Jake McGahee's
Yes.
senior year, and we were all standing up there, and he was swimming the 500 in finals, and I just remember like hearing all of these people, like all of these parents who don't really know club swimming, right?
Hmm.
And they're like going nuts because the announcer's like, he's about to break the Georgia
Pumping them
state
up.
record. And like all these people are going crazy. And like all of us club coaches are like, actually, and I don't remember what the time was. I want to say it was almost like 4 seconds slower than his best time
Right.
because he obviously was not rested. Like we don't really fully rest our kids for high
No.
school state because especially for a swimmer like that, they have bigger goals.
Well,
And
they have juniors coming up in December, so
right,
you're not gonna throw that
exactly.
out
And
there.
so like I just remember standing up there and all of us were just kind of looking at each other and we were like, yay for him, and it's not that we weren't like all of us as Georgia coaches were not proud because he's a great kid and he's done
Yeah.
amazing things. But we knew that like he was much better than what all of those people were actually seeing.
Right.
But it was funny because I remember standing up there and some of the Swim Atlanta coaches were like, if he doesn't fix his dolphin kicks, I don't even know. And like
I think that's
we
where
were
all the
all
coach.
up there like complaining, right? And
Yes,
like and analyzing, and like the rest were like, he's amazing. The
he
coaches,
is. For a high school swimmer, he's amazing.
oh yeah, but it was just really funny because again, it's like as coaches, we have these little pet peeves, and then when we are able to like go at a different point of view. I mean, even sometimes if you've ever gone in the stands, not even at the top of the stands, but just being on the stands and being able to like see your swimmers from that point, you're like, oh my gosh, they're
Yeah.
like, you realize. But yeah, I mean, that's one of my biggest ones right now is just the underwater dolphins, how important, like, if you are preached all the time, which every swimmer is now in practice to do dolphins, I mean, executing it in the race is the point, right? Like, you have to do it in a race. I mean, doing it every day in
Well,
practice and show
it's the
up.
chocolate cake effect, okay?
Yeah,
So, because for a swimmer, you go to a meet, especially like a high school state meet, and there's a lot of pressure.
yeah,
Now, even though we can debate how important high school state is for a swimmer that's going to go to the NCAAs and have bigger fish to fry,
yeah,
as it were, it's still important.
yeah,
At any meet, let's take an 8-year-old, right? You have your parents in the stand, you have your coach watching you, you have your friends watching you. There's pressure, and the
yeah,
question is, do you want to take a risk to try something new
yeah,
and not have, especially if you don't have confidence, because you don't know what confidence is at 8 years old. You just kind of go, you know what I mean? So it's more bravado than it is confidence at that age. But anyways, so do you take the risk and say, okay, I'm going to try this new thing,
yeah,
knowing, especially it depends, and this is where like it depends on the parents too, because if the parents are very critical, there's no way that the
yeah,
athlete's going to take a risk because they have to go back up and hear it from the parents. Now, if the
yeah,
parents are very supportive, then the swimmer is going to take the risk because they know only my coach is going to care. And
yeah,
and it's kind of like grades, right? Your friends go, well, how fast did you go? How much did you drop? Did you get an
yeah,
A? Did you get a B? I mean, it's going to be that kind of stuff. But
right,
they're gonna revert back to what's most comfortable
yep,
and just try to improve upon what they've already done so they don't lose because we're more afraid to lose something than we are to gain something. Every study where they're like, if you do this, I'll give you this, or if you don't do this, I'll take this away.
yeah,
People will be motivated by not losing something more than gaining something.
yeah,
And so it's the chocolate cake. So you can say all you want, you got to do 4 dolphin kicks off the wall, but if they're not willing to, if they want to go back to chocolate cake, they're
yep.
not going to do it.
Well, and again, one of my favorite stories is one time when I was standing on deck with Bill Forrester, I heard him, and this is to a girl. You got to understand that he was telling this to who was like literally ranked in the top 10 in the nation as
Right,
like a 14-year-old,
right.
and and she was being a 14-year-old girl, and she was like complaining, and she was like, I just can't stay underwater. for that long. I just can't do it. And I still like it. I say this to my kids all the time after hearing him say it. And I still remember him looking at her and going, you have got to learn with being okay with being uncomfortable.
Right.
Until you figure out how to be okay with pain and being uncomfortable, you're never going to get any better. Once you figure out it's okay to feel uncomfortable, it's okay to feel pain, you're going to move mountains. And I still like that repeats in my head. And I tell kids that all the time with underwaters when they're like, I just can't stay under. And I'm like, you have got to learn how to be okay with feeling uncomfortable. And then you will be able to push past that point of doing one or two dolphin kicks off of the wall in a big meet. So,
Well, you can't
yeah,
learn unless you're uncomfortable.
correct.
Every
Yeah,
study shows that there's a certain range of pain, whether
yeah,
it's while you're studying or physical exercise or whatever it is. If there's not a certain amount of pain, you won't learn it.
right,
You have to go through that. Now, if it's a a lot more pain, then you're going to shut down. And if it's a lot less pain, there's no reason to change.
right. Yep,
So, it's the swimmer that, you're doing 25s on the 30 and you're going 29 and pushing off.
yeah,
And you're like, I can go 27, get a couple of seconds rest, and I feel a whole lot better. Okay, I'll do that. But I'm not going to go 25 because that hurts just as
right.
bad as going 29. So I'll just
Yep,
say at 27 where I'm comfortable
yep,
because my times are where I need them to go. They're reaching my goals. Therefore, I don't need to push myself. Therefore, I don't need to grow. And
yeah,
until you get some pain where my friend is getting faster times than me, well, I don't like that. Now I'm willing to push. It's
right.
that whole motivation that has to happen. It's kind of crazy, but you have to
Yep,
have pain or else you're not going to change.
for sure. So, what's one of your big pet peeves?
Give me a topic area. You mean out of meat? Like
Oh
I have
boy.
pet peeves all over the place. I'm a professor. I'm
Let's
I'm
let's go meat. Meat pet peeve out of meat.
the biggest pet peeve I have at a meet. Okay, there's two major pet peeves I have at a meet. There's probably five, but I'm going to go with two. Number one, warm-ups where coaches
Yep.
are just jerks.
Yeah.
And there was one time I was at a meet up in Athens and it was finals. So it's open warm-ups. I'm
Right.
warming up my kids. They're going, and this group of swimmers decide to snake through the warm-up lane.
What?
Yeah, they just started down one lane and then another, and they push up. You go under the lane line and you go to the next lane, and they snaked all the way through and totally screwed up my kids. Well, one of the kids decided to be really cute and used my one of my girls as the she was against the wall, used her as the wall, pushed off on her back and pushed off. So I went to the coach and I was like, "Hey," in front of all their kids, I'm like, "This is ridiculous what you guys just did, and you should be ashamed of yourself." And this coach was like, "Whoa, what are you talking about? What are you talking about? It's open warm up. They can do whatever they want." Yeah, they were clowning around, but they did. I'm like, they got in my way. And I said, which one of you guys put your footprints on the back of my swimmer? And his head snapped. And this kid just kind of raised his hand. He goes, I'll handle this now. And me and the coach are friends. But I
Yeah.
was just like, no, I mean, I get
No.
it, but come on, don't be,
Warm-ups doesn't mean that you get to just act a fool and do
it's
whatever
warm
you
up.
want. Right.
You know what I mean? And then the other one is when coaches decide, hey, we're sharing a lane. I get this. How long until you start doing turns? I'm not teaching
Yeah.
turns here. I'm warming them up. I've already done all my work at practice. I'm going to give
Yep.
them, oh, geez, what are we
Yeah.
doing?
Yeah.
So,
No.
and then the other one's officials,
Oh boy.
just in general.
That's a sensitive subject. I don't know if we can go through that without
I
cussing.
will, I will say this: the officials do a really good job. The one thing
Yeah.
that officials do that really get to me is when, and the coaches help with this. So you can almost put coaches in here too. Is whenever we have the meeting and people start voting to change things so they can
Ugh.
get out of there faster.
Yes.
So we
Yeah.
were at zones and like they wanted to cut the 15-minute break between the individual events and the relay events so that the officials could get out 15 or 20 minutes faster. And we lost our minds. And what it comes down to is they are deciding to make changes based upon what's best for them, not what's best for the swimmer,
For
and
reach.
yeah, in the head official for USA Swimming at the time, he and I were having a conversation. He just basically said, if it's a tie between what's best for the meet and what's best for the swimmer, and it's two different options, go with the swimmer. And if they ever say something about it, you drop my name.
Yeah.
You name drop it. And I was down at a Gainesville meet. This is years ago. And they were pausing the boys' side. They had boys' side, girls' side. There's an age group invitational in December. And they were holding the boys 20 minutes from starting so that they could go faster through it instead of pausing between the events to line up with the girls.
To catch
They did.
them.
And I
Yeah.
tried to get the meet referee to talk to me all 3 days. And finally I stood at the clerk of course and the timing tables and just said, I'm not moving until I get to talk to this guy.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And he avoided me. And finally, the head of Florida officials was there, went and found the guy, and then we had it out.
Yeah.
And Siva, he's no longer there. He's moved. But at the time, he's like, "You're right. Why are we doing this?" Because I had one guy that did. I had one. He was 12 years old. He did 4 events in 25 minutes.
Yeah.
I said,
No.
"This is not a workout.
No.
This is a taper meet for this kid, and you're
Yeah.
making it a workout." And that's what that it boggles my mind. I could give you story after story where suddenly they're like, "Oh yeah, now we're going to do time trials. We're
Yeah.
going to do time trials. It's supposed to be at the end after the session. We're going to fit it in this 15-minute break." Well, I have like a coach next to me going, "What are we doing?" Like they didn't tell me. They didn't come and
Yeah.
tell me. My kid's not
Yeah.
even warmed up and he's got to go now.
Yep.
It's like they make the dumbest decisions to try to compact everything, and it's the meat that's hosting it has to be out of there in a certain amount of time, or they pay more money. So there's that. You have coaches that
Yep.
want to get it out of there. They have parents that want to get out of there. They have all the adults want to get out of there,
Yep.
and yeah, the swimmers want to get out of there too, but they want to have their best shot, and I
Right.
hate it. It
Yeah.
drives me bonkers,
No, I mean,
and it happens at every flipping meet.
it does. And nothing nothing infuriates me more than listening to officials say, well, we're in it for the best of the kids.
No, you're
And
not.
then watching them repetitively make decisions that are consequences for the kids. A big instance that I will talk about this because this personally happened to me, and it is something that I know USA Swimming has is trying to get better at, but it's really on an LSC level that this occurs more, is that everything is technology based now.
Right.
So when we submit entries, when we anything that we do, email, stuff like that, it's technology based. Any human that has a job or goes to school or uses it knows that it is not fail proof, right?
Right.
There
Yeah, of
are
course.
there are so many times when you think that you've sent an email to somebody and then it's sitting in your outbox or it's sitting in their spam
Right.
or I mean, who
Trust me,
knows?
I teach online. Do you know how many communications just don't make it?
Right, exactly. And so when I say that, this literally included just literally happened with South Carolina High School State, and I was infuriated because it was the same people that helped run USA Swimming meets,
Right.
right? So we had an instance of one of the high school teams here, the head coach, a tree fell through her house, no internet,
Right.
right? So she was trying to do these entries on her phone with a hotspot that went in and out of service,
Right.
right? And she finds out that the event file that went to state did not put in the correct time for two of her relays, put in a slower time,
Right.
that the system that she used didn't pull the right time, right? So not only did they not let her enter the relays, like that there was a discrepancy, let her fix the time because they said, well, the rules state that whatever is entered, you can't change those times.
Right.
So two of their relays did not get to swim at high school state because of a malfunction.
Wait, they didn't get to swim at all?
The relays did not get to swim. Three of her kids did not get to swim at high school
Wait,
state.
time out. So what you're saying is I enter all of my kids. I send them
Yep.
in. Then from those times that they are submitted, that's where they pick the top 30. They don't have a database saying here's the top 30.
They do. And So, but the entry file that she sent was the slower times, and that's what they went off of was the entry file. And
I'd protest.
and again, good for the high school. The superintendent called, the athletic director called, and they were like, nope, these are the rules. And I can say there's been numerous times of other coaches and teams and myself where the same thing has happened, that an entry file has been sent and a time was messed up because the systems that we use, again, they're like everything else, they are not flawless. And
Time out. They're designed by swim coaches. Of course, they're not
correct,
flawless.
correct.
It's
And
not like some computer science is going, I could fix that. Nope.
yeah,
It's some
no,
swim coach going, I got to
right.
fix
And
this
so,
somehow.
like, there has been times that I have hand entered times into my system, sent them, and it overcorrected it.
Yes.
And like, I printed out what I had, and then what they got on their end was not what I had. And this is an instance exactly of what you're talking about, right? That, like, what are you actually doing for the kids if a coach has proof? It's for us in USA Swimming, it's swims, right?
Right.
That time is in swims. You can see it's there. You can see whatever, right? But then you're saying because there was a discrepancy that, well, you're past the deadline, so sorry, your swimmer's not swimming. So for mine, what happened, my instance of this, what happened was some of the systems, when you have relay only swimmers, even though you may have them on your side of the system, there's certain things that have to be clicked that they come across in the entry file that they're relay only swimmers, right?
Right.
So most of the time, the job of the admin is to go through and check and make sure that, oh, well, this team has 8 relays, but there's only 8 swimmers entered in the meet. So
Right.
there's no
Yeah.
way they could, there's something weird that's going on. So in my instance, what happened was I did everything that we are told as coaches to do, and like emailed and double checked and said, does everything look good? On your end, are we good to go? The relays were in there without names, which is normal to do at a
Yeah,
high
that's
level
fine.
meet because you can switch around swimmers. Everything was good. No joke when I tell you an hour before no, it wasn't even an hour. It was about half hour before I walked onto that pool deck. I got an email saying that my swimmers who were relay only swimmers, which by the way, half of them were seniors and it was their last meet,
Right.
were not allowed to swim at all. They were already on the way up to the meet,
Right.
already had hotel rooms, and they were like, no, that was on you. No, no. When I get an email confirming that everything is okay, that's not on me.
Did you get them in the meet?
No, they refused. They refused. And ready for this? I still had to pay for those swimmers. I still had to pay for those.
How is that even possible? How do you pay for those
It,
swimmers? Because because you entered a relay.
yeah, yeah. And this is the kind of stuff, and this isn't the first time. I've heard of it so many times. And I sit there and I go, if these people are here to serve swimmers, if they are here to do the right thing by swimmers, what are you teaching them by keeping them out of the meet because of something that was, a technology issue? It happens so much. And it's so frustrating for coaches. It's frustrating for kids when they've worked this hard that it's like, you're not doing anything to actually progress the swimming community forward
Right.
by making these consequences. Because I assure you, at a national level, if Caleb Dressel's entries got messed up and it was from a technical standpoint, and then that coach went and said, Caleb's times are wrong, they're going to get changed. So what are you actually doing as an official or an admin if you are not helping those swimmers have every opportunity that they can to swim at a meet? That's your
Yeah.
job.
I mean, it's hard because the rules are there for a reason,
Right,
right?
for sure.
And, so let's take your two instances.
Yeah.
We'll just spitball here. So
Yeah.
let's take the first instance where it's the relays. You have the top 30 times. You know who's
Right.
the fastest. So
Right.
there they are. So
Yeah.
what do the rules say? You have to pull from and it seems like there's a gray area or a discrepancy that's there.
Always.
You know what I mean? And so in a gray area situation, you go with the swimmers.
Exactly.
Period.
Yep.
Now, if it's black and white,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? If it's absolutely black and white, hey, if you don't have your entry times, okay, let's go with futures, right? I
Yeah.
got kicked up to North Dakota because for the first time ever, this is coming out of COVID, futures filled up. And now
Yeah.
they fill up all the times. But
Yeah.
until then, it never filled up. So I got
Never,
my entries
ever.
in, got kicked, had to go up there. There's nothing they can do. It's black and white. Here's the entry list, period. I was like, okay, I hate it, but that's the way it's going to go. Got it.
Right.
But in these gray areas,
Yeah.
and the other thing is, whenever you double check and say, here's the swimmers, are they in the meet? And they don't
Yeah.
check them in, I would, I'd lose my mind.
Oh yeah. And
I would
I mean, I
absolutely lose
did.
my mind.
I absolutely did. And but it's the same thing, right? That I feel like, you
Like what
know,
they're saying is they're saying we're holding the standard and you've got to reach that standard. And
yeah.
the thing is, it's high school. Get over yourself, number
Yeah.
one. And
Yeah.
number two, how does that help anybody?
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And that's my point, right? Like that's what you were saying with the pet peeve is like it is such a pet peeve to me that I'm like, why are you here if you're not here to like do everything in your power to help swimmers get get to their goals, be able to swim, etc. You know, there are black and white rules and those are the rules and every coach that's a good coach gets it, right?
Right.
But those gray areas, you should always be ruling in the swimmer's favor. You should
Always.
always be trying to give them whatever opportunities they can. Because in the long run, you know, and again, a great official that I know, you know, that actually helped me with this relay situation after it was all said and done, said to me that you should not even be on the pool deck as a coach, as an official, whatever, if you are not there first and foremost to help those swimmers benefit
Right.
from all of the hard work that they have put in. If that is not the first thought in your mind of how can I fix this? If your first thought is no, then you shouldn't be there
Right.
because swimming would not exist unless we had swimmers. So, you know, I'm right there with you. And, you know, again, same thing with coaches. Like when you are there and you are there because you want trophies or you want recognition or you think that the standards don't apply to you, you shouldn't be on that pool deck, right?
I mean, I think it's with coaches, it's really not about trophies and stuff. It really isn't. At least
Yeah.
in swimming. I mean,
Right.
football, yes. Baseball, yes. Basketball, yes.
Yeah.
But for us, it's like what they want is they want fast times as quickly administered as possible
Yeah.
to make sure that they are absolutely they don't have to be there any longer than they have to be there. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And it's like timeout. Good things take time.
Yes.
So buckle in. This is your career. This is what you decided to do. Buckle in.
Right.
The other thing that I find, this is a quick pet peeve with officials. This drives me crazy. You're at a meet, touchpad goes down, pause everything, fix the touchpad. And I'm like, you're 5 heats into 7 heats. And now you have your top two. So you have, let's say it's prelim final. So you have circle seating for the last three. So the first heat of circle seating gets to go. And the last two have to wait 15 minutes just standing there, destroying them while you
Yeah.
try to figure out everything and test everything. Why can't you just wait till the end of the event? And every time they say, well, it's not fair to that lane 7. You know
Yeah.
what? That's why we have clickers.
Right.
You really think that's going to make much of a difference?
Yep.
You really think it could? It could be that 2/100ths of a second makes a difference. But you know what? I would rather them swim because now
Yes.
they're definitely going to be 2/100ths of a second slower
Right.
than whatever you're going to click anyways because they've been standing for 10 or 15 minutes waiting for you to get your act together.
Yeah.
Like it should be a rule. If there's a problem, then you as long as you have timers and everything else, we can fix it
Yep.
in between events.
Yep.
Make an announcement. Hey, lane 7's not going real well in between events.
Yeah. For sure. I mean, and I don't know how many times that oh gosh, you know, in our careers that I've watched that happen that like,
Every damn
I
meet.
mean, yeah. And then it's like, I think the worst is when it's finals and they walk them out and they're standing behind the block and they do it.
Yeah.
So like
And
You know when they do it at nationals, when they test that stuff out before
what?
the heats, and then
Yeah.
it's between events.
Yeah, exactly.
They
And
don't
so,
they
I
don't go
mean,
like, hey, let's pause here.
yeah,
And they send out, hey, things are going to be slowed down by about 5 minutes. We're going to get this
yeah,
very quick because what it does is when you pause it right there, the lifeguards who don't know what they're doing are
yep,
going over to find a touchpad. But
yeah,
instead, you run two heats where they have the touchpad behind the block. Chunk,
yep,
chunk, test, go.
right.
You save time,
Yeah, yeah.
which is ironic because the officials want to get out of there faster anyways.
Yeah.
The one chance they have to legally get out of there faster, and they don't take it.
Yeah, yeah. So I'll go on to one of this kind of leads into my my other pet peeve is which you already kind of like
Your
got.
other, as if you only have two.
Yeah, there's lots.
I'm gonna call BS on that
But
one.
this kind of goes off of what you said is warm up etiquette.
Yes.
And so, I use this example because I think it's like the extreme example of, how many meets we've been to at Georgia Tech where there's like 30 kids in a lane, short course lane, right?
Yes.
You're talking long course. We're talking like short course. And, both sides of the pool and the diving well is filled with kids.
Right.
And it drives me crazy when coaches cannot communicate with each other to work together that everybody gets the best warm up that they can.
Right.
So, what I mean by that is, most of the time I am coaching senior level kids, right? And there may be times where I have 14 boys that are all over 6 foot tall in
Right.
a lane warming up together. Okay. And they know how to function as a group to just keep swimming because in those situations,
Right.
that's
You
just
just
what you
go.
got to do. Right. You can't be doing like repeat 50s and things that are going to like, you just got
I
to.
mean, you can pull a Garrett Weber Gale.
What do you mean by that?
So I was interviewing him one time. This is for my, a study or whatever. And I go, how do you warm up? He goes, it's extremely slow. And I go, what are you talking about? He goes, I used to get so nervous about it. I just go as slow as physically possible. And he goes, I'll stack up 9 swimmers behind me. They're all pissed. But you know what? I'm getting my warm up in.
Yeah.
And he goes, it's clear water in front of me. And I just
Yeah.
nice and easy. I was like,
Yeah.
okay, do it, man.
Yeah. Well, and I mean, again, like that's actually totally fine. But my thing is that when you see like, even with little kids, like if I see a lane of 8 and unders warming up, that there's like 20 of them in there,
Right.
it never crosses my mind to be like, you know what I should do? Put these 14 gigantic, almost men in that lane and
Yes.
tell them to go. That's a great idea. That's what I should do. Right. So
Right.
it's that stuff that I'm like, even to my swimmers, I tell them that I'm like, don't you dare go and jump in a lane if it is open warm-ups, with swimmers that you can see are not at the same like level you are.
Yeah, it doesn't help you at
Don't
all.
don't go and do that. Or like don't go and do turn work in the middle of a lane with 20 other swimmers that you're like, we're just going to stop now in the middle of the pool and start doing turns. I
Yes.
mean,
Well, I mean, the opposite of that is like when I was at Rose Bowl or you watch Dynamo or Swim Atlanta or Swim Mac or whoever it is, normally they'll stack their kids up in their lanes that they want to use
yeah,
for the opening and warm up. And
yeah,
don't screw with those lanes,
right, exactly.
right? Because they're going to get in, they're going to get out, and then that's going to open it up for everybody else.
Yes,
And then I'm a
exactly.
small team at this point, and so I just say, hey, what I
Wait,
need you to do is go to whatever lane has less. So it'll get clogged up. That my swimmers will look around, they'll jump. I say, I can find you. You need to find the place that's going to be best for you for your warm up, and they do.
yeah.
It's a lot
And I
easier.
mean, the thing is, too, is that like there's been a lot of times also where I've told my kids that, when you're in that situation also where you've got really, really big teams that may need like 5, 6, 7 lanes, right? That I'm like, hey, go at the end and do what they're doing. You'll be fine. They know what
Yeah,
they're get in and do what they're doing because you'll get a warm up no matter what. Just go in and do it. you know, and most of the time that's not a final situation because normally finals you have a lot of space and it's not as bad. But it's the same thing that I'm like you where I feel like when you are at a meet as a coach, you should not be doing turns with kids. Like
No.
maybe if it's an 8 and under meet where it's only 8 and unders that you're trying to remind them to touch with two hands, like that's that's a different thing. But if it's a huge meet and you've got all different levels there, or like the lanes are packed, you do not need to be doing turns. You need to be telling your kids, make sure when you're doing these 50s, you're counting your strokes.
Right.
Make sure you're touching with two hands, not let's stop an entire lane so we can do this. Or another big thing that I that I've seen kind of along with the snake thing that you said was I have watched so many senior boys, and I'm the exact same way. Nothing infuriates me more than watching senior boys get in a lane and think that because they're huge, they're allowed to swim over swimmers
Yep.
or flip turn on swimmers.
Yep.
And they're like, oh, we're just going to make them so mad that they'll leave the lane. No, no, you won't.
No.
I mean, that's just so I hate that when coaches are like, well, that's just the way it is. You got to battle. That's not what we mean by battle.
No.
That's rude. That's disrespectful. That's
Right.
that's not the same thing. When we say battle, we mean, you better be ready to get in because when everybody's getting in, you have your goggles on and you go and you're moving.
And
Don't be
don't
messing
stop,
around.
but
Don't
don't
be
turn on people. Like, be
right.
considerate.
Right. And
That's where
so
you
that
like
is,
when they grab the ankle of the person in front of them and yank
uh,
down.
yeah, no,
That's
no.
that's a fight.
It is. And I
Now it's
mean,
time to throw punches.
yeah, and I can tell you, I mean, how many times that I have had kids on numerous parts of my teams where that has happened, and it really has come very close to blows, especially with teenagers that when they're trying to do the right thing and you've got other ones that come in there and are like, we're just going to bulldoze everybody. That's not,
I was at a meet down in St. Pete. This is a crazy story. I was at a meeting down in St. Pete, and this high school group gets in, and I
yeah,
mean, they're senior swimmers, right?
yeah,
They get in, and we're sharing a lane, and I have my kids in there, and they're like 13, 14, 15, and these
yeah,
are big 18-year-olds,
yeah,
and they're going, and I just said, keep swimming, don't worry about it, I got you. And I had another coach. It was long course meters there at the other end, and this guy comes down. And I guess one of my kids accidentally cut him off or whatever it was. I mean, I saw it. I didn't think anything bad about it. And
yeah,
he's like, these mother effing blah, 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 blah. I'm going, the next time that kid comes down here, he's going under. I'm taking him out. He's splashing water. He is infuriated, like this kind of stuff. And so I'm right there and I said, stop. Where's your coach? And he's like, what? I'm like, where's your coach? And I brought the coach over. I was like, this is what he just said, and he's going to go after my swimmer. And I swear to everything holy, I'm going to get him kicked out of the meet if he swings or does anything else.
yeah,
And if you have any class whatsoever, you're going to take care of this right now because
yeah,
he's showing anger issues that I've never seen on a pool deck before. You got to
yeah,
handle this. So the
yeah,
coach pulls him aside, and at the end, he comes over and he apologizes. Hey, I'm really sorry about that. I let the best, get the best of me. And it was a good learning experience. But I
right.
mean, when I saw that, I was like, "Holy moly,
Yeah.
this is gonna be bad. This
I
is gonna
and
be
I definitely think it's more so with teenage boys, like when they're getting ready for a meet, their testosterone is in full fledged, and they're like, and it's like I
their
see
frontal
some,
lobe is not developed, so they're a little bit more
yeah, and it's like I think they just forget their manners, but I don't ever really have that with girls. The girls are actually more the problem that they're timid and that they are the ones who will stop on the wall because they're scared if
right.
there's too many people or too big of boys that are in there. But you know, it's
Well, you
just,
know what I find? I find that the girls that can handle it will defend other people.
oh yeah, yeah,
That's the biggest thing. Is like they
for sure,
become like a mother hen in a
yeah,
very positive way,
yeah,
and they'll tell the boys off. And the
yeah,
one thing the boys won't mess with is a very assertive girl
yes,
because
angry
they're
too.
just scared to death. They have no idea what to do.
Yeah, for
It's
sure.
kind of like a big dog when a little yapper dog starts going off and they just back away like I don't know.
Yeah,
I don't know what to do. I'm just
yeah.
gonna leave.
Yeah.
and they'll take off.
So, I mean, that's definitely like, I feel like as coaches, it's our job to, when we get in those situations, that we have to be aware of
Right.
we're sharing lanes with, we have to be respectful, like don't be that person. No one likes that person. No one wants the team that treats kids that way or does that crap. It's not awesome. You get
No.
a bad reputation. So, yeah. So what about you? Give me another pet peeve.
Let's go away from swim meets. What are some other areas?
Okay, practice.
Okay. So let's see. What are some of my pet peeves? Okay, so I have certain rules when I coach. There's certain rules you have to follow, and if you don't follow them, it just drives me and everybody else crazy, right?
Yeah.
So the first rule of the pool deck is do your best. It's not try to do your best, it's do your best. And it
Hmm.
could be different day to day. That's
Yeah.
fine, but you're doing exactly what you can do. So then we have the other ones, which are, push off 5 seconds apart. If you don't know what you're doing, don't leave the wall. Now that sounds, how hard is that? You here's the set, it's up on the board. Okay, I got it. And I will have kids push off, and I'm like, what are you doing? They're like, well, I didn't. Well, I mean, is the time? What's the rule? What is the rule? The reason these are rules, the 5 seconds apart, is because you don't want to drive the people in your lane insane,
Yep.
because that's going to drive them insane. You don't want to drive me insane or anybody else because you don't know what's going on. And then they'll get to like, it's like, let's say it's 2025s. By the second 25, they're like, hey, what's going on? What are we doing?
What am I supposed to be doing?
Why are you guys grabbing your kickboards? Stop. And so they're like, but they don't want to look dumb. And I get that. Okay. So they don't want to look like they don't know what they're doing. But at the same time, it's kind of like, hey, just ask. I don't mind going over it again with you. Because if you don't know what you're doing, you're just aimlessly swimming and you're wasting your time anyways.
Yeah.
And if you get in other people's way, you're wasting their time. It
Yep.
just take a second, take a beat, miss a couple 25s, miss a 50, and get it right in your head. Or raise your hand. I don't know.
Yeah.
Because if you don't understand, we all know that somebody else doesn't understand.
Right.
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 But that's the biggest thing. If you don't know what you're doing, don't leave the wall. And the other rule for the little kids is don't go underwater
Yes. Hand
unless you're
on the
swimming.
wall, head above
Go
water.
underwater. But
Yep.
those are my four rules. It's not hard. And when
Yeah.
everybody does it, everything runs smoothly. When
Yeah.
one thing goes off, I lose my mind. I don't say anything necessarily, but I'm just like, dear Lord, I swear, it's not hard. It's four rules. It's
Hmm.
four rules. And the first one's just to encourage you.
Yeah.
So I don't know. That's my biggest pet peeve.
Well, or my practice pet peeve, as soon as I say this, coaches are gonna have the same reaction. Getting out in the middle of a hard set.
Oh, yeah.
Nothing infuriates me more than fake cramps, gotta go to the bathroom,
Right.
like, and it
But timeout.
grinds.
You've done it.
Well, you know what was when I was
We've
one
done
of
it
those
once.
people. I will admit, I was one of those people when I swam. I would never get out in the middle of a set. I would just take really long in the bathroom, like in between sets. So I'd
Right.
like miss the beginning of the set.
Uh,
I never was the middle of the one. Like I would grit my teeth and get through it, even if I had to go to the back of the line. But I was definitely one of the ones that was like, oh, my stomach hurt really bad. Took a little
right.
bit longer. Like I was one of those. But
I
it,
would jump out.
it
We
just,
the pool that I was in, the men's bathroom locker room was right at the end of the pool, and I was
oh
known to.
no.
I had jumped out once or twice before. It
Yeah.
was a thing one year.
Yeah.
I was like,
Hmm.
okay, I'll stop.
Yeah. And
I'll
I mean,
admit it.
like, oh, and the reason it infuriates me is because then those same swimmers who get out in the middle of sets are the ones who are the first ones to be upset at a meet or cry whenever they don't go their times. And it's, I don't know why I'm not getting any faster. And repetitively, me going, do you finish all the sets?
Right.
Do you do the sets the whole way through consecutively weeks on end? There's your answer.
Well, no, then and see that's the other thing. The corollary to that is the parents. because the parents were like, why aren't they going better times? I'm like, well, because they're getting out of sets. We're like, but they're working hard. They say they're working hard. They say they're doing this. They say they're doing this. I'm like, I had one kid named Andrew one time. I was like, I haven't seen your son in 3 days. She's like, what? And he would sneak in, wash his head so he's wet, and he'd like not be there, and then he'd tell his mom that he was at practice.
Yeah.
I'm working hard. I'm doing great.
I literally just had that happen because the high school coaches have been with me. And I've literally just had that happen that I was like talking about my, Cubs club swimmers to them. And some of them are their high school kids, obviously. And I was like, yeah, like I haven't seen her in like a month and a half. And they
Right.
were like, and they go, what? And I was
Yep.
like, we haven't seen her in a month and a half. And they're like, she's been telling us that she was at your practice. And I was like, you want to see our role? She has not been here. And I'm
Right.
like,
This is
that's
where all right, we
interesting.
need to work on our communication.
But yeah, and I mean, it's such it grinds at me, especially when they're senior level swimmers, because it's like, they have all of these expectations, but whenever they can't just simply go through a full set, you're like, I don't know what else to tell you, but you're not going to get to your goals until you stop doing this. Like
Right.
there's no way for me to sugarcoat this. You've got to, again, Bill Forrester, you got to be okay with pain. You got to accept pain and get through it and stop making excuses, or you're never going to get where you want to be. So it's
Yeah,
just,
the
it
other thing
drives
is
me nuts.
if you grind it out, you feel so much better about your
Oh
workout.
yeah.
Like 100%.
100%. And it gets okay, and here's an add-on to that. And it's even worse when the parent is at practice. You know where I'm going with this. The parent is at practice and the swimmer gets out and goes to the parent to complain that my muscles really hurt. I don't feel good. I don't like,
I never
and
had
then the
parents
parent's
that
like,
parents are not at
oh,
practice.
and I'm like, and then and again, that same parent is the one who's like, I don't know why they're not getting any faster. They've been at every practice. And I'm like, are you watching the same thing that I'm watching? Are
Oh
you
yeah.
like seeing what I'm seeing? Clearly not. I don't
No,
know.
and then on top of it, you have the swimmer that says, "I'm working as hard as I can."
Oh
Oh,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Then your potential is a lot lower ceiling than what you think it is.
Yeah.
And I've had arguments with parents, and like my kid is offended that you said that they have to work harder. They're working as hard as they can, and I can't believe this, and they're all upset. And then they turn around and they realize 3, 5, 6 months later, oh shoot, they went to another team and they're saying the exact same thing. Oh,
Yep.
okay, that's crazy. It's like
Yep.
in Southern California, you have like, club hoppers.
Yep.
They go from this club for 6 months and this club for 6 months, and then when they come to you, you're like, oh, they'll be here for a couple months, and then they'll move on
Yeah.
because it's not about the coaches, it's about the swimmer,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
that's where it's at. All
Yeah.
right, so we need to do our normal best practices for coaches. So what do you got for best practices for coaches? Based on
Um,
what we've said so far, it seems like warm up is going to be the major topic.
Number one, be respectful of other teams and coaches when you're at warm-ups. Don't be that guy or
Yeah.
girl. No one wants that. Number two, obviously, like double check everything that you do when it comes to officials, entries, things like that. Make sure you have a paper trail of everything,
The
even if
biggest
it's
thing I
not.
would say there is PDF
Yep.
and send in a PDF.
Yep.
So you send in the high tech file and then
Yep.
put in a PDF too so they can check it.
Yeah, for sure.
Because what you're seeing, and then you have both of them entered, and
Yep.
it's not that big of a deal. And my biggest thing, best practices that I learned early on, and this sounds dumb. It sounds like, okay, we should be doing that. Read the meet information
Yeah.
packet,
Yep.
all of it.
Yep.
Don't
Don't
just skim it.
assume
Don't just look at the
anything.
end. Just read the whole thing
Yep.
because that's going to empower you to have, hey, but the meet information says this. Why are we changing this?
Yep.
And then you have because I was at zones, and at one point the head official said, "What's your name?" I said, "It's Coach Matt." She goes, "Good," because all we say is, "Here comes the Georgia coach." Now we can at least call you by your first name because you're in here all the time. I'm like, well, I've read the meet information and we're not following it.
Yep.
And yes, you do have some discrepancy there, but it says this and this and this. Why are we changing this?
Yep.
Is this within your purview? Is this what you, and I'm just in like the guy that was,
Educate yourself.
well, the other thing is you're empowered not to correct them, but to ask the right questions
Yep.
to make them help them make the right decision for your swimmers.
Yep.
And we won the sportsmanship award, and the main reason for that is because not only did we have chaperones that helped, you know, be officials, but when things came up, I would just ask the questions
Yeah.
and get them to think about it, and then they would go, okay, now yeah, we understand. Okay.
Right.
But if you're
Hmm.
not reading the meat information, if you're assuming the meat information,
Yep.
it's not going to work. It's
Yeah.
not going to work.
Yep.
And anytime that you're empowered, you know, it's the same thing. Whenever I was a young coach, the head coach handed me the rules and he
Yeah.
said, read this cover to cover. I was
Yeah.
like, cover to cover? He's like, well, read at least the official and then go through the officials training. And I go,
Yeah.
why? They're like, you need to think like an official.
Right.
And there's been so many times. I remember this one time I was at Savannah and one of our kids swam. It was his best time. And they get called for like no two-hand touch on this one turn. I was like, he two-hand. I was right there. He two-hand touched.
Yeah.
Well, the head referee goes, I'm like, I'm gonna challenge that right there because I know
Yeah.
he's putting it toward me. He goes, he is. I'm gonna challenge that. And he goes, why? And I go, well, you see over there, see where your official is standing between these two lanes? I believe they have to stand between these two lanes. So he calls in. He's like, hey, Chris, have you been standing there the whole time? Yeah, move over. Okay, we don't have to worry about that because they're standing in the wrong place. They can't make the call.
Right.
You know, so you want to empower yourself. And the biggest thing about besides having etiquette and making sure your swimmers are following etiquette, I know you're teaching it, is read the meet information and just make
Yeah.
sure that you're empowering yourself to help out.
And same thing, just as you said, be bold and brave enough to speak up when you know that something isn't right. Don't think that just because the way it is the way it has to be.
Right.
If there is something that is not for the benefit, the best benefit of the swimmers, you have every right as a coach to say something. Because a lot of times again, officials are just going out about their business and they're not thinking about the swimmers. They're not thinking about it from a training perspective. You know, again, warm up, warm down, those things like that. That's our job. And
Right.
so if something isn't going right, speak up. And honestly, I mean, 95% of officials will figure out a way, to help and fix things or slow a meet down or, whatever needs to happen. Most of the time they will.
Right.
So, you just got to be a matter of speaking up
But it's
about things
also
that need
picking your
break.
battles.
Yes, yes,
You
pick
know,
your
you're not
battles for
asking
sure.
for favors every time around the deck. You know,
Hmm.
you're sitting back, you're taking your medicine. Okay. I didn't see it, but sure, they have that
Yep.
problem. Like the biggest thing is like they'll hand me the thing like, sorry about that. I'm like, they do it at practice every day.
Right,
So not a big
exactly.
deal.
When
Like,
you know. Yeah,
you do. You do.
for sure.
Okay, swimmers. What do we say to swimmers?
Listen to your coaches.
Just I know this sounds really sometimes I want to say this to like my son. Just be normal.
Yeah.
Can you just be normal? Just for a second, please?
Yeah.
Just be wise, make wise decisions.
Yes.
Don't
Yeah.
be a jerk. Don't show off. Just do what you got to do. Be focused
Yep.
on.
And trust the fact that the majority of the time there is some knowledge behind the things that your coach is saying to you, and
Yeah.
that you might want to consider that you could benefit from it if you just did it or tried it. So yeah.
Well, it's take a risk.
Yep.
So why do we have mid-season meets and why do we have championship meets? Mid-season meets are the where you take your risk so that by the time you get to your championship meet, you're ready to swim fast.
Right.
Technically fast.
Yep.
So you can't wait until your championship meet to try to try something out.
Do something. Yep.
You can't. You've got to do that at the mid-season meet. So the beginning of the season, I've heard coaches all the time like I don't the first meet of the season, I don't care what your times are. I want to see 4 dolphin kicks off of every wall.
Yep.
Focus them in on and then just keep but you've got to do that early so that when you're the chocolate cake is comfortable. The
Right.
new technique is comfortable when you get to that major. And swimmers, that's your job.
Yep.
I can train you, but you are the one that's got to pull the trigger and say, now's the time to take my shot. Now's
Right.
the time to take the risk.
Be
And
brave.
tell your parents, we're trying something new. Tell me how many kicks I do off the wall. Well,
Yeah.
what does that do? That allows your parents and your friends to be part of your process and help you out, because now you have the pressure not of time, but of technique.
Right.
And so why not do that? Why not just make it easier and just say, hey, everybody, today I'm at this meet for my 200 freestyle. I want 4 kicks off of every wall. If I don't do it, you let me know.
Yeah.
Okay, who cares about the time?
Yep. For sure.
All right.
So, last but not least, parents.
Oh yeah. Okay, so let's start off with parents that are volunteering as officials. We love
Mm,
you.
we
Okay,
do.
like honestly, there's I know we've hit the officials kind of hard today, but I mean
Yes.
honestly, every official that I know as a parent, the reason they're doing it is one of two ways. One, they don't want to sit in the stands with the crazy parents. No, just joking. They don't want to sit, they want to do something, right? It makes the time shorter, and
You like to
they're
bring
just
that
gonna.
stuff on the deck. Just kidding.
It's accomplishment. You get free food at hospitality. They give you shirts. I mean, sure, but your heart's there to help out the
Right.
swimmers and to run.
Right.
We need you. You know what I mean? So
Yes.
that's that. But when you work your way up, you've got to think about why you're doing it and are you fulfilling that purpose. So if you're there for the swimmers, be there for the swimmers. It kind of reminds me. Did I ever tell you about the first time I worked at a steakhouse and I was the dishwasher? Did I ever tell you the story?
No.
I'll make it real brief. It's a long story, but I'll make it real brief. It's the first night, and I'm like underage. I'm under 18, so I can only work 8 hours. So I get there
Yeah.
for the evening shift, and I hear, "Hey, a bus just came in." It's like this Ponderosa with this big salad bar. Bus just came in. I'm like, okay, what does that mean? They're like, in about 30 minutes, there's going to be a lot of silverware and stuff coming through, and we have this place where you could put bus trays and all this kind of stuff, and it kind of fills up.
Yeah.
Then, like 30 minutes later, hey, bus just came in. I'm like, I already heard that. Like, this is the second bus. I was like, okay. So now everything's full and they're starting to put stuff on the floor and I'm going as fast as I can. And I'm back there all by myself. It's my first night. I don't know what I'm doing. Then they're like, look sharp. The district manager's in here for his inspection. I was like, you got to be kidding me. So the manager and the assistant manager come back, ha ha ha. They make a couple jokes, keep doing your best, blah, 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 blah. They go. Then, like 30 minutes later, I'm like, hey, the vice president is here. Once every like so many years, this guy shows up unexpected and he's there. I'm like, so the vice president of the company is there, and he comes in the back and he just goes, "What's going on?" I was like, and I turn because I'm sharp with my tongue. I should need to knock it off. I turn on like, it's my first night. I don't know what I'm doing. So go ahead and make your jokes and laugh at me and get it over with because I have a job to do. And he goes, "Excuse me?" And I said, the district manager, the manager's already come in and made fun of me, but I still got to do the job. So I'm going to work as hard as I can. He takes off his tie, takes off his jacket, hangs it up, puts on an apron. He goes, I started in this company in the dish room. He goes, I'll push you catch. So he's spraying everything off and just gets me kind of caught up. Then he makes the manager and the assistant manager apologize to me. I'm like 16 years old.
Yeah.
I had to end at midnight and or 11 o'clock. They didn't get out of there for like 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning because we were so backed up. But what he said to me is never forget where you came from.
Hmm.
And because as you work your way up, if you decide to stay in this company, you need to help out the ones that are behind you that are in that same situation. And
Yep.
in the same way, the officials, you came in this to help your kids and help these kids swim. And you're holding the rules, but within that is a gray area where you can turn the dial toward the swimmers. Turn
Yep.
the dial toward the swimmers
Always.
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 And if you do
Always.
that and you can explain it that way, it's for the benefit of the swimmers this way, you win every
Yep.
time.
Yep.
Every time.
For sure. And again, I'll back you up on that. We're hard on officials because that is probably the one thing that when we've put as many hours as we do as coaches and something is ruled that is in such a gray area that shows it wasn't towards the best intent of the swimmers, it's heartbreaking for us.
Right.
And I think sometimes that if officials can just remember that, for all the hours that the swimmers have put in, most of the time coaches have put in double, if not triple,
Right.
and invested time away from their families and their lives, their health, everything. And so when you have the opportunity to give a little, just try to remember that,
Right.
because we aren't officials where we get to go to a meet once a weekend and step on deck. And that's the gist of it. We're doing this day in and day out, dealing with parents, dealing with, whatever. So, again,
Well, the other thing that I would add to that briefly is as an official, try to work your way up to the biggest meets possible.
yeah,
Because I find the ones that go to junior nationals and nationals are at that level. When they come back down to state, they're a lot easier to work with and they're a lot more on par with for the benefit of the swimmers because they've experienced up here and they realize, hey, we got to give these kids a break.
yeah,
You know what I
yeah,
mean? And this is how they did it there, and I like that. So now I'm learning from the best, so now I can do this.
yeah.
Yeah, I
And
find that the officials that have been there for 25 years and never worked their way up, it's their fiefdom, and it doesn't
yes,
work out very well.
yeah.
So,
And I guess mine to the parents would be the same exact thing that we're saying to officials. You need to do everything that you do with the thought process of the best intentions of your child.
right,
And it doesn't mean that they will ever be a Katie Ledecky or a Caleb Dressel, but they can still be good humans. They can still have a love for the sport, and they can still learn how to work hard and be respectful.
right,
Because when they get out into the real world, when swimming isn't a thing, or sports in general is not a thing in their adults, this is their building blocks to learn how to fail, to learn how to succeed, and to learn how to work with others. So don't always be the first thing that interjects. Let them figure it out, because they're going to be better off when they get older if you do.
absolutely. I think that's a good word to end on. So thanks so much. We'll catch you next time.
See you later.
Whatever platform you're listening to, make sure you subscribe and hit the like button. And if you loved us, leave a review. Also, if you're interested in getting more information from this episode, click the link in the description and we'll send you notes from this episode. Finally, do you have a topic to suggest or want to share your thoughts? Email us at swimedinfo@gmail.com. swimedinfo@gmail.com.
Join us next time for a thoughtful discussion about swimming and how coaches, athletes, and parents can improve their performances. Thanks for listening to Swimmed, education for coaches, athletes, and parents.